He celebrated too early, and I remember the sound more than anything. The pop of a champagne cork in a courthouse parking lot, the sharp laugh that followed, the way he lifted his glass like a judge's signature was a trophy. "Cheers," he said, staring straight at me, as if the world had finally agreed with him. My hands didn't shake, not where he could see. I held my folder tight, knuckles white against the manila edges, and watched him grin at his attorney like they'd just closed a deal. That was his favorite thing. Closing deals. His name was Grant Holloway. Mine is Maren Pierce. And on that bright Wednesday in May, he thought he'd taken the only thing I refused to hand over, the house. He'd told everyone already. His mother. His friends. The men at his golf club who clapped him on the back and said, "Man, you played it perfectly." By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed with messages from people who didn't know what to say. "Are you okay? I'm so sorry. What happens now?" I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and sat there in the quiet, letting my breathing slow, because if I cried in that lot, he'd taste it. And then, within 1 minute, the legal and financial anchor of everything that followed rang through my speakers. My bank. The caller ID flashed. Harbor Ridge Credit Union. I almost let it go to voicemail. I was exhausted. Eyes gritty from weeks of court, stomach hollow, from coffee and adrenaline. But something in me, an instinct sharpened by living with Grant, told me to answer. "Ms. Pierce?" the woman asked, careful and polite. "This is Denise Carter with Harbor Ridge. I'm calling about your mortgage account." My throat tightened. "Is there a problem?" "There's a request we received this morning," she said. "A payoff statement request and a verification for a home equity line of credit." A home equity line of credit. I stared at the steering wheel like it had betrayed me. "I don't have a line of credit." A pause, a soft click as she checked her screen again. "It shows as opened 18 months ago," Denise said, "and there's a draw request pending for $48,000. We can't process it without confirming the borrower." My mouth went dry. "The borrower is me?" "It lists you as primary," she said, "and Mr. Grant Holloway as co-borrower. The request came from a third-party servicing company. They attached a copy of a deed and a signed agreement." A deed? My pulse slammed. I had just left a courtroom where the judge said Grant would keep the house for now, because his name was on the deed when we married, because our prenup used words like separate property, because my payments didn't change the paper he brought in. The judge had sighed like I was trying to turn feelings into law. Now the bank was telling me there was a second loan tied to my name. "Denise," I said, voice tight, "email me whatever they sent." "I will," she said quickly. "But Ms. Pierce, did you authorize Mr. Holloway to request the payoff statement?" "No." The word came out hard, like a door slam. "Okay," Denise said, more serious now. "I'm placing an immediate hold on that draw request. If your signature was used without permission, you should file a fraud report and a police report. And you may want to consult an attorney." When I hung up, my hands finally started to shake. Not because I was scared of losing the house. He'd already decided he'd won that. I shook because I understood what he was doing. Grant didn't just want the house. He wanted to leave me with debt, with blame, with a financial bruise so deep I'd spend years explaining it. He celebrated too early because he thought the judge's order buried the truth. But paper leaves tracks, and Grant was always sloppy when he thought he was winning. I drove home with the windows down, letting the air sting my cheeks so I wouldn't fall apart at the lights. Our house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac outside Raleigh. Blue shutters, a porch swing I'd refinished, hydrangeas I'd planted when our daughter was born. Grant called it his investment. I called it home. His car was in the driveway. Inside, his laughter filled the kitchen. He was on a video call with his mother, champagne flute still in hand. Our daughter, Lila, 9 years old and still believing grown-ups told the truth, sat on a stool with a juice box, eyes flicking between us. "There she is," Grant said, angling the camera. "The woman who thought she could take my house." His mother's mouth tightened. "Maren, I hope you learned something today." I kept my voice gentle for Lila. "Sweetheart, can you go upstairs and start your homework? I'll be up in a minute." Lila hesitated. "Are you leaving?" Grant chuckled. "Not your problem, Peanut. Daddy's got it handled." "Upstairs," I repeated softly. She slid off the stool and padded away. When her footsteps disappeared, I set my folder on the table. "I got a call from the bank," I said. Grant's smile twitched, just a flicker. "Oh?" "Harbor Ridge received a draw request on a HELOC," I said. $48,000, in my name. He took a slow sip of champagne. So I didn't sign it," I said, "and they received a quitclaim deed with my signature, a deed I never saw." The room changed. Grant's mother's face froze on the screen. Grant ended the call without a goodbye and stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're spiraling," he said. "You lost and now you want a dramatic story." "It's fraud," I said. He laughed. "Good luck proving it." Then he leaned in, breath smelling like champagne and victory. "By the time you try, the money will be gone," he whispered. "And you'll be the crazy ex-wife who can't accept reality." He stepped back, smiling again, and walked away, like he'd already won twice. That night, after Lila fell asleep, I opened the bank email. The attachments made my stomach flip. A HELOC application, a signature page with my name printed neatly, and beneath it, a cursive scrawl that looked like mine if you didn't know me. And the deed, worse. A quitclaim deed transferring interest from Maren Pierce to Grant Holloway, dated during our separation, notarized by someone I didn't recognize, recorded with the county. Recorded. I searched the notary's commission online and felt my pulse steady. Expired. 3 months before the deed date. A mistake. And mistakes, in legal documents, are cracks you can pry open. I printed everything, made copies, built a binder with tabs, deed, HELOC, notary, bank communications, court orders. At 8 the next morning, I called my attorney, Julia Sandoval. She answered with a tired voice. "Maren, I'm sorry about yesterday. I don't have time for sorry," I said. "Grant forged a deed and opened a HELOC in my name. The bank stopped the draw." The silence on the line sharpened. "Send me everything," she said. 20 minutes later, she called back. "This isn't just divorce court anymore," she said. "This is title fraud and identity theft. We can file for emergency relief to stop him from refinancing or transferring anything." But the judge ruled on what he saw, Julia said. "Fraud changes the frame." That afternoon, we filed a motion for a temporary restraining order, a motion to set aside the deed, and an expedited hearing request. We also notified the bank's fraud department. Grant didn't know yet. He was still floating on yesterday's win. 3 days later, the county recorder's site refreshed with a new filing, and my stomach dropped. Warranty deed, Grant Holloway to Holloway Holdings, LLC. He was moving the house into an LLC, trying to complicate ownership, trying to make it harder to touch. Julia's voice turned sharp when I called. That tells us he knows he's exposed, she said. We add the LLC and we move faster. The escalations didn't come like one big explosion. They came like a metronome. Every few days, another small act of arrogance. Grant started showing up with a real estate agent, walking through rooms like he owned the future. Lila saw strangers measuring her bedroom. She asked why Daddy was doing that. Because he thinks he can, I told her, keeping my voice steady. But Mommy is working on keeping you safe. He sent me midnight texts, long strings of accusations, calling me vindictive, unstable, a liar. I saved them all. He tried to fix the deed by filing a new notary acknowledgement, as if you could cure a forged signature with a fresher stamp. Julia filed an objection and added it to the evidence stack. 2 weeks later, the temporary hearing arrived. Grant walked in wearing a crisp navy suit and a smile he'd practiced. His attorney carried a thin folder, confident this would be easy. Julia carried 2 banker's boxes. Judge Halverson, the same judge who ruled against me in the divorce, looked down at us with weary eyes. "Ms. Pierce," he said, "you're back." "Yes, Your Honor," Julia said, "because new evidence has come to light." Grant's attorney scoffed. "Buyer's remorse," he said. "Ms. Pierce lost, and now she's accusing my client of crimes." Julia placed the deed on the bench. "This deed was recorded with an expired notary commission," she said. "The notary's stamp is invalid. The bank is investigating a HELOC application attached to this deed with a forged signature, and Mr. Holloway attempted to transfer the property into an LLC days after the divorce order." Judge Halverson's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "did Ms. Pierce sign this deed?" Grant leaned forward, confidence returning. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "She wanted out." Julia opened a folder. "Your Honor, Ms. Pierce was out of state on the date this deed was notarized," she said. "Here are flight records and conference registration." Grant's head snapped toward me. Judge Halverson leaned back. "Temporary restraining order granted," he said. "No refinancing, no transfers, no encumbrances. Any violation is contempt." Outside, Grant cornered me near the elevators. "You're going to regret this," he hissed. I met his eyes. "You celebrated too early," I said. His laugh sounded thin. "It's a delay," he said. "That's all." But the crack was there now. The full evidentiary hearing came 6 weeks later. Grant brought witnesses. His mother, a friend who swore I'd agreed, anyone who could paint me as bitter, and him as reasonable. And then he made the mistake that changed everything. He took the stand. He couldn't resist. He always believed his voice could bend reality. His lawyer built the story. That I wanted a clean break. That I signed willingly. That we went together to notarize the deed. "Where did you notarize it?" his attorney asked. "At the UPS store on Falls of Noose Road," Grant said smoothly. Julia stood. "Your Honor, may I cross?" Judge Halverson nodded. Julia's tone stayed calm. "Mr. Holloway, are you aware that UPS store closed permanently 14 months before the date on this deed?" The courtroom went still. Grant blinked. "That's not true." Julia slid a document toward him. "Public closure notice," she said. "The location is now a yoga studio." Grant's mouth opened, then closed. Julia didn't stop. "And Miss Pierce was in Atlanta that weekend," she said. "Here are her flight records. Here is a photo of her conference badge posted by her employer on that date." Grant's face flushed. "So either Miss Pierce can teleport," Julia said softly, "or you are lying under oath." Judge Halverson leaned forward. "Answer," he said. Grant swallowed. may have the location wrong. Of course, Julia said. Let's talk about the notary. The stamp belongs to Angela Wren. Her commission expired months before this deed. It was renewed, Grant snapped. She told me. Julia lifted an affidavit. Ms. Wren states she has never met Ms. Pierce, never notarized this deed, and her stamp was reported stolen. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Grant whispered to his lawyer, loud enough for the mic. What? Judge Halverson's expression hardened. Mr. Holloway, he said, you are in serious trouble. Julia added one more piece, like turning a key. The bank has confirmed the IP address used to submit the HELOC application, she said. It traces back to Mr. Holloway's office. Grant's shoulders stiffened. You're lying, he said, voice cracking. Judge Halverson raised a hand. Enough, he said. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for review. The restraining order remains. Further attempts to transfer will be treated as contempt. Grant walked out without his champagne grin. But he didn't stop. He filed for bankruptcy, a strategic move to stall, to pull everything into a new arena, to hide behind federal rules. When Julia told me, my stomach dropped. Can he do that? He can file, she said. Filing doesn't erase fraud. We brought in a bankruptcy attorney, Omar Patel, sharp and quiet. He reviewed Grant's filings and frowned. He listed the house as an LLC asset, he said, but the transfer happened during active litigation. That's a fraudulent conveyance issue. Meaning? I asked. Meaning a trustee can unwind it, Omar said, and trustees hate games. We filed an adversary proceeding challenging the transfer and asking for relief from the automatic stay. Grant still tried to perform confidence online, gym photos, captions about destiny, but his eyes in those pictures looked tight. Before that twist hit, there was a stretch of weeks where Grant tried to win by exhaustion. He couldn't move the house on paper because of the restraining order, so he tried to move me. With pressure, with humiliation, with little legal tricks that forced me to spend time and money just to stay standing. He filed emergency motions that weren't emergencies at all. One claimed I was refusing to turn over a set of spare keys. Another claimed I was wasting utilities. He even argued that because his name was on the deed, I should be responsible for all maintenance until I left. As if I was a tenant he could bill. Julia answered each one with short, sharp filings, and each time we asked for fees. Most of the motions were denied without a hearing. But the point wasn't to win. The point was to make my life small. He started sending me certified letters, thick envelopes with official-looking headers, demanding I vacate peacefully by dates he made up. He'd highlight phrases from the divorce order, ignore the parts about notice and procedure, and end the letters with the same smug line. Failure to comply will result in immediate enforcement. Enforcement. Like he had a button he could press. The first time a process server knocked on my door, Lila was home. She opened the door before I could stop her, and the man in a baseball cap held out a packet like it was candy. For Miss Pierce, he said. Lila's eyes widened. Mom, she whispered, clutching the papers to her chest like they were dangerous. I took them gently, closed the door, and hugged her. It's just grown-up paperwork, I said, forcing my voice warm. You didn't do anything wrong. But that night, when she went to bed, she asked, Are we in trouble? I sat on the edge of her mattress and felt my heart squeeze. No, I said softly. We're in a fight, and Mommy is not losing. I meant it. But I also meant something else. I meant I was done letting him make our home feel temporary. The next morning, I took a personal day off work and went to the county register of deeds. The place smelled like paper. She looked at my driver's license, then at the screen. "You're listed on the mortgage," she said slowly, "but the deed history is messy." Messy was a polite word. When she printed the chain of title, my stomach sank. There were documents I'd never seen. A notice of lease filed by Holloway Holdings, LLC. A UCC financing statement that referenced fixtures at the property address. A memorandum of agreement between the LLC and a contractor company I didn't recognize. It was like Grant had been stapling paper to my house for months, maybe longer, trying to create the appearance of business interests tied to the property. I took the stack home and spread it across the dining table like a crime scene. Julia reviewed it and exhaled sharply. "He's trying to cloud the title," she said. "If he makes it confusing enough, he hopes you'll settle just to stop bleeding." "How much of this is legal?" I asked. "Some of it might be technically legal," she said, "and some of it is theater. But the forged deed is the foundation. If we collapse that, the rest follows." Grant didn't know I'd gone to the recorder's office. He was still acting like he was the victim of my refusal to accept reality. He started showing up at Lila's school, not to see her, to see me. He'd stand near the office doors when I dropped her off, smiling like we were friendly, saying my name too loudly so other parents would turn their heads. One morning he said, "How's it feel knowing you're squatting in my house?" A mother behind me stiffened. A dad cleared his throat. I kept my face calm. "It feels like I'm following a court order," I said, and walked away with Lila's hand in mine. Later, Lila asked, "Why does Dad talk like that?" I swallowed the heat in my chest. "Because he wants attention," I said, "and we don't feed attention." Julia called it reputation pressure. Grant knew he couldn't beat me on evidence, so he tried to beat me in public. Then he tried to weaponize our co-parenting. He told Lila that if she wanted to keep her room, she needed to talk sense into Mom. He bought her a new tablet and said, "This is what you get when you stick with me." When Lila told me, shame flashed through her face like she thought she'd done something wrong by accepting it. I took the tablet gently and placed it on the counter. "You didn't do anything wrong," I told her. "Gifts are not bribes, and love isn't a reward." Her eyes filled. "I just want it to stop," she whispered. "I know," I said, "and it will." In early July, Grant violated the restraining order, not dramatically, not with a moving truck, with a signature. Julia's paralegal caught it first. A new filing in the county records. Deed of trust, Holloway Holdings, LLC. He had tried to pledge the house again, quietly, to a lender that didn't care enough to ask why a family home was suddenly collateral for an LLC. Julia filed a contempt motion within hours. When Grant was served, he exploded. He called me from a block number, voice raw. "You're stalking my filings," he barked. "You're obsessed." "I'm protecting my credit," I said, steady, "and you're violating a court order." He laughed, brittle. "No one cares about your little binder," he said. "People care about ownership." I didn't argue, because while he was shouting, Omar was doing something else. Something Grant never saw coming. Omar had been talking to the bankruptcy trustee. Trustees don't do drama. They do math. And Grant's math was ugly. His LLC had debts that didn't match its income. His personal accounts showed transfers labeled consulting that looked like disguised withdrawals. His filings listed assets he didn't own and omitted assets he did. The trustee requested a 341 meeting. The creditors' meeting where a debtor answers questions under oath. Grant showed up in a suit anyway, as if clothing could intimidate federal procedure. Omar attended as my counsel in the adversary matter, and Julia sat beside him with a small folder and a pen. Grant tried to charm the trustee at first. "I'm just trying to restructure," he said. "Fresh start. You know how it is." The trustee, a woman with steel gray hair and a voice like gravel, didn't smile. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "do you understand you're under oath?" Grant blinked. "Yes." "Then answer directly," she said. "When did you transfer the property at 118 Marigold Court into Holloway Holdings, LLC? Grant hesitated. "After the divorce," he said. "After litigation began?" she asked. "I don't know what you mean by litigation," Grant said, trying to get cute. Julia leaned forward. "He was served with a restraining order motion before the transfer," she said calmly. The trustee's eyes narrowed. "So you transferred an asset while facing claims," she said. "And you did not disclose that to the court, correct?" Grant's jaw tightened. "I didn't think it mattered." The trustee's pen scratched across paper. "Noted," she said. Then she asked about the HELOC. Grant tried to deny it again. The trustee asked, "Are you aware your bank has logged the submission IP address?" Grant's eyes darted. "Banks log a lot of things," he said. The trustee looked unimpressed. "They do," she said, "and they also refer fraud." The meeting ended with the trustee requesting additional documents and warning Grant that non-disclosure could lead to dismissal or referral. Grant left that room quieter than he arrived. But at home, he turned his fear into rage. He started dropping off Lila late. He started forgetting school materials. He started using the parenting app to send messages that looked polite on the surface, but carried poison underneath. "I hope you're happy." "This is what you wanted." Lila asked why you hate me. Julia told me, "Don't respond to feelings. Respond to facts." So I did. Every late drop-off, logged. Every missing backpack, logged. Every manipulative message, saved. Meanwhile, I kept building my file. I requested my credit report every week and watched for new inquiries. I asked the bank for a full fraud packet. I met with the detective once in a small interview room with a box of tissues on the table and a camera in the corner. He was calm, not dramatic, and he asked questions like he was assembling a puzzle. "When did you first learn about the HELOC?" he asked. "The day Grant celebrated," I said. The bank called within a minute of me leaving court. He raised his eyebrows. "That's timing," he said. "It was supposed to be," I replied. He wanted me to feel trapped. I handed him copies of the documents, the expired notary commission printout, the county filings, the text messages, the audio clip transcript. The detective flipped through the pages slowly. "People who do this," he said, "usually think they're smarter than the system." I pictured Grant's grin in the parking lot. "He does," I said. By late July, the pressure had made him sloppy in a new way. He started talking, not to me, to other people. A neighbor I'd known for years pulled me aside while I was watering the hydrangeas. "Maren," she said quietly, "I hate to get involved, but Grant told my husband he had a backup plan if the judge didn't cooperate. He said something about making the debt stick to you anyway." My stomach tightened. "Did he say how?" I asked. She shook her head. "Just that you'd be paying for it no matter what." I thanked her and went inside, hands shaking again. But this time, the shake wasn't fear. It was clarity. Because if Grant was boasting about a backup plan, it meant there was more paper I hadn't found yet. More debt. more traps. And that's when Omar dug deeper into the LLC's creditor list, and the private loan surfaced. Then right around the point where my life felt like nothing but hearings and paperwork, the twist landed. It wasn't just the HELOC. Grant had taken a private loan using the house as collateral through the LLC, and the lender demanded personal guarantees. He signed one, and he forged mine. My name was on a $90,000 personal guarantee, with an interest clause that ballooned like a trap. Omar laid the document on the table. If they believed this was real, he said, they could come after you personally. I stared at the page. My signature mimicked again, the same sloppy tracing. My vision blurred. He was going to ruin me, I whispered. Yes, Omar said, and he almost did. We amended everything. Julia expanded the fraud claims and requested punitive damages. Omar referred the matter to the U.S. trustee for bankruptcy fraud review. When the private lender learned the signature was disputed, they demanded a hearing too. Grant was now facing pressure in 3 directions, and his celebration started to look like panic. Bankruptcy court moved with colder efficiency. Judge Lanning listened to Omar lay out the facts. Fraudulent transfer after litigation began, forged signatures, stolen notary seal, bank IP evidence. Grant's bankruptcy attorney argued it was all disputed. Judge Lanning looked directly at Grant. Did you sign Ms. Pierce's name on any of these documents? Grant straightened, trying to summon swagger. No, Your Honor. Then you will not object to forensic handwriting analysis, she said. And the automatic stay is not a shield for fraud. Relief from stay is granted. State court may proceed. In the hallway afterward, Grant grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. You're ruining me, he hissed. I pulled away. You ruined you, I said. He leaned close, voice shaking. If I go down, you go down. I looked at him and felt something settle. No, I said softly. That's how you thought it worked. The handwriting analysis took 3 weeks. Those weeks were waiting and pretending, making dinners, helping with homework, smiling for Lila while my chest stayed tight. One night she climbed into my bed and whispered, Is Daddy going to get arrested? Kids sense tension like weather. I stroked her hair. Daddy made bad choices, I said carefully. Adults have consequences. You are safe. You are loved. When the report came in, Julia called first. It's conclusive, she said. My heart pounded. Conclusive how? The signatures on the deed, the HELOC, and the guarantee are not yours, she said. And the examiner found tracing indentations. He also found significant similarities between the forged signatures and known samples of Grant's handwriting. Grant had literally traced my name, like my identity was a tool. The final state court hearing was set for mid-August. By then, Grant looked like a man being chased. His suit hung looser. His mother sat behind him, rigid and pale. A representative from Harbor Ridge's fraud department attended. So did the private lender's attorney and a detective from the county's financial crimes unit. Judge Halverson stared at the packed room. This, he said, is not what I expected when I issued that divorce order. Julia stood. Your Honor, she said, neither did we. The hearing stretched for hours. Julia presented the handwriting report, the notary affidavit, the bank's IP evidence, the business closure notice, the fraudulent LLC transfer, and the bankruptcy trustee's findings. Grant took the stand again because he couldn't help himself. Julia asked, When you transferred the home to Holloway Holdings, LLC, did you disclose to the court there was pending litigation and a restraining request. Grant hesitated. I didn't think I had to. Julia tilted her head. But you understand contracts, she said. You market yourself as a financial strategy consultant. So which is it? Sophisticated or confused? Grant's face reddened. Then Julia asked, Did you celebrate outside the courthouse after the divorce order? Objection, his attorney snapped. State of mind and intent, Julia said. Overruled, Judge Halverson said. Answer. Grant swallowed. Yes. Julia's voice went softer. And did you tell Ms. Pierce? Prove it. Because by the time you try, the money will be gone. I don't recall, Grant said quickly. Julia played the audio clip from my phone. Grant's own voice filled the courtroom speakers. Prove it. Because by the time you try, the money will be gone. His confidence turned into evidence. Judge Halverson's face darkened. The detective took notes. By late afternoon, the judge leaned back, rubbing his temple. Mr. Holloway, he said, you have committed serious acts against this court, against Ms. Pierce, and against financial institutions. Grant's voice cracked. Your Honor, please. This is getting out of hand. It got out of hand when you forged a deed, Judge Halverson said. Then the power shifted, not with fireworks, but with findings. The judge declared the quitclaim, deed void from the beginning, void ab initio. He ordered the county to expunge it. He declared the transfer to Holloway Holdings, LLC, fraudulent and void. He granted my motion for relief from the property portion of the divorce order, because it had been based on fraudulent documents, and he ordered the house be retitled to me. As an equitable remedy, Grant's face drained of color. His mother made a small sound, like air leaving a balloon. Judge Halverson continued, I am awarding Ms. Pierce attorney's fees and costs in full, due to bad faith conduct, he said. I am also ordering restitution for credit monitoring and related damages. And I am referring this matter to the district attorney for prosecution of forgery, identity theft, and filing false instruments. That was the moment, around 85% into this nightmare, when I felt the reversal settle in my bones, not triumph, relief. Because for months, Grant treated the law like a weapon he could swing. Now the law had turned, and it was pointing at him. Outside the courtroom, Grant's mother tried to approach me. Maren, she said, voice trembling, we can talk. I looked at her and felt more tired than angry. Your son did this, I said, and you cheered. She flinched. Over the next weeks, the practical pieces fell into place. The county corrected the records. Harbor Ridge closed the fraudulent HELOC, issued letters clearing my credit, and cooperated with investigators. The private lender withdrew the forged guarantee and joined the fraud complaint. The bankruptcy trustee moved to dismiss Grant's bankruptcy for bad faith and requested sanctions. Grant's business clients disappeared quietly. Confidence doesn't survive facts. One Friday afternoon, the detective called. Ms. Pierce, he said, we have enough to move forward. There will be charges. My stomach turned anyway. Okay, I said softly. When I hung up, I sat on my porch swing and watched Lila ride her bike in slow circles. She looked up and smiled, hair flying behind her. I smiled back. And for the first time in a long time, the air in my chest felt like it belonged to me. Grant moved into a small apartment across town. For a while, he still tried to act like he had control, smiling too wide at pickups, calling me buddy like we were friendly. But the mask didn't fit anymore. One day, as Lila buckled into his car, she paused and whispered, Mom, did Dad lie? I crouched to her level and chose my words with care. Your dad made choices that weren't honest, I said. Adults have to fix what they break. She nodded slowly, like she understood more than I wanted her to. Months later, in criminal court, Grant didn't wear a navy suit. He wore a wrinkled shirt and a face that looked older than 41. He pleaded guilty to reduced charges because the evidence was overwhelming. The handwriting analysis, the bank logs, the stolen notary seal, his own recorded words. The judge ordered restitution, probation, and strict no contact, except co-parenting through an app. When the gavel fell, Grant didn't celebrate. He looked at me once, quick, hollow, and then looked away. I didn't feel joy. I felt closure. Because I spent years thinking the hardest part of marriage was loving someone. But the hardest part is surviving someone who believes they're entitled to you. Grant celebrated too early because he believed the story ended when a judge sided with him. He believed my worth was measured by whose name was on a deed. He believed he could write my name on paper and make it true. He was wrong. The story didn't end in a parking lot with champagne. It ended in files, stamps, records, and steady steps. In a mother holding her child and choosing patience over panic. And when I sit on my porch now, listening to the swing creak, watching the hydrangeas bloom again, I don't think about his grin. I think about Denise from the bank making that call. I think about Julia carrying those boxes. I think about the moment the judge said, void from the beginning. Because sometimes the most satisfying victories aren't loud. Sometimes they're just the quiet sound of a lock turning and a home staying yours.